Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nyayu Annisa Nurul Qolbi. I'm from 5PC, English Department, Polytechnic of Sriwijaya. Today, in this special occasion, I want to present about scientific method in research methodology. Scientific method is a process for experimentation that is used to explore observation and answer questions. The first thing you have to do in scientific method is you have to formulate a question. The scientific method starts when you ask a question about something that you observe, like how, what, when, who, which, why, or where. The second thing you have to do is research the question. After you formulate a question, you have to research the question using library and internet research to help you to find out the best way to do things and ensure that you don't repeat mistakes from the past. The next is you have to do from a hypothesis. What is hypothesis? Hypotheses are presumption or temporary answer from existing statement in the formulation of research problem. Why it is said a temporary? Because the answer that exists are answers that come from theory, so it's not from practical. The function of hypothesis is to provide limitation and minimize the scope of research, to facilitate data collection and processing, to determine the type, number, and relationship of research variable, to determine which dependent variable must be controlled. So, research hypothesis is also called the substantive hypothesis, which is a hypothesis that contains statements about the relationship between two or more variables according to theory. Here, the hypothesis is the foundation of the experiment. So the development of a hypothesis is the first step in design and conducting an experiment. Here we have the characteristic of good hypothesis. The first one is conceptual clarity. Hypothesis should consist of clearly defined and understandable concept. It should be stated in fairly terms and the meaning, also implication of which cannot be doubted. The second is empirical reference. Research must have an ultimate empirical reference. No usable hypothesis can embody moral judgment. Also, a good hypothesis must have empirical reference basis from the area of inquiry. The next is the good hypothesis must have the character, the objectivity. So hypothesis must be objective, which facilitate objectivity in data collection and keeps the research activity free from researcher value and judgment. The next is specificity. It should be specific, not too general, and should explain the expected relation between variables. The next is the hypothesis must be relevant. The hypothesis should be relevant to the problem being studied as well as the objective of the study. The next is testability. Hypothesis should be testable, should not be a moral judgment. The next is consistency. Hypothesis should be consistent with an existing body of theories, research, findings, and other hypotheses. And the last one is simplicity. A good hypothesis should be formulated in simple and understandable terms. It should require favor condition and assumption. So number 4 is conduct an experiment to test your hypothesis. Your experiment tests whether your prediction is accurate and thus your hypothesis is supported or not. So after you make a hypothesis, you should conduct an experiment to test your hypothesis if they're supported or not. The next is analyze data and draw conclusion. Once your experiment is complete or done, you collect your measurement and analyze them to see if they support your hypothesis or not. The last is communicate the result. To complete your science fair project, you will communicate your result to others in a final report or in a display board. I think that's all from me today. Thank you.